All right. Welcome to Taiki Tuesday, everybody. I'm so excited. We have a special guest today. Uh, Real quick, just so you know, you should know where you are because hopefully you're here every week. It's Taiki Tuesday. I'm Lauren Young Durbin. I'm a career transition coach. I work with women who are in mid-career and are looking to change their jobs and change their careers and live their best lives. And today I'm super excited to have special guest Steph.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into coaching, what you do?
Definitely. Yeah, I'd be happy to. So for me, I have a bit of a saga. I actually started my career in political affairs. So for the first few years, I was working with the federal government. Decided politics was not the long-term plan for me. And so I transitioned to get an MBA. So after getting my MBA, I was at UNC Flagler. After getting my MBA, I transitioned into corporate finance. So I actually worked at PepsiCo doing some cost roles and also some innovation finance roles with the marketing team. And then I also worked at Uber. So at Uber, I was doing global FP&A for Uber delivery. And I did that for a few years. Kind of throughout that time, though, within my corporate career, I was an interviewer at both Pepsi and Uber for the finance org. I also did a lot of diversity recruiting at Pepsi. And then I also did internal development type roles within Uber. So working with those who were kind of recent grads, had just joined the company, and helping them in that process. What I learned was that was the kind of work that I really got energized about, that really excited me. I mean, the payoff of having someone say, oh my gosh, thank you. You've given me a new perspective. You've helped me, grow in this way. That to me was really irreplaceable. And so I did decide to go out on my own. I am the founder and CEO of Steph Consulting, where I work with kind of two demographics. So I do work with kind of late students, so kind of college students going into their first roles or maybe first time entering the workforce. And a lot of that is surrounding like professional communication, interviewing, just really introducing them to this is the professional world. Additionally, I work with mid-year career professionals, but a lot of them looking to transition, but really different industries, either different industries or different functions. And again, given the fact that I have transitioned, I'm kind of uniquely poised to help them tell that story and really be able to explain that. I always tell people I went from political affairs and imagine trying to explain to Pepsi or one of these large corporations why you are the best candidate for a finance role while you're going up against people who have a consulting background, investment banking background, all of those things. So again, I kind of draw on that and work with my clients to help them through that process.
One thing that she left out, of course, I think, and she probably agrees, that we're Wellesley alums.
Yes.
Round of applause for us.
Absolutely.
I wore my blue.
Hey, we'll call this a Wellesley blue. It's not quite, but we'll go with that.
A blue.
It's a blue for sure, for sure.
That's great. So that's how you became, I forgot to say in your intro that you are, well, you said you were an interview and career transition coach.
Yes.
So how did you make that transition? Like, what did you say in your interviews when you're like you said, you're going up for these finance jobs and they're like, who, why, what?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that was literally the reaction I would get. And so this ties into the way I approach my work with clients. I do what I call skills-based interview prep. And what that means is we're really looking at the skills that you've developed. A lot of people, when you are moving or transitioning from, say, an industry or a job function, you don't have that kind of experience, right? I didn't have any corporate experience, but what I did have was skills. So for example, in my political jobs, I was doing PAC fundraising, so political fundraising. And through that, I had to handle large sums of money, right? And so translating that to say, okay, in a finance role, I have to handle large sums of money. I was also building out a grassroots network across the country. So working with mortgage bankers across the country, right? You're talking about your CEOs, your VPs. So I had to be able to speak with those people, kind of understand their language, have a professional, kind of acumen about myself to be able to interact with them. And so that was a skill that then I was able to work on and bring that to a different realm. Like in finance, for instance, I was presenting to directors and VPs monthly, just giving them that report on finance. So again, a lot of those skills that I had developed in the political realm is what I really relied on. And then of course, having the MBA was necessary in terms of like proving out my abilities and my skills, but really telling that story. I would walk into interviews and they would literally say, we looked at your resume. explain this. It was just very abrupt. It was just like, explain this. And then I would give them what I call a career story, which is, again, something I work on with clients. But once I did, they would go, oh, okay, that makes sense. And so it's not just saying, here are my skills and this is what's transferable, but also, can you explain it, right? Can you actually convey what happened and make it make sense to someone else? And so what that means is when I develop career stories, it's about not just a resume walk, but what were your goals? What were your motivations? What was your thought process, right? When I tell you, I decided to get an MBA because political, affairs was just not my future. It's not where I wanted to be. And then transitioning into doing coaching. Well, I found that this is really what energized me and excited me. We're all people, we're all open to have our own opinions and paths that we want to take, but can you explain that? Can you make someone understand it and relate to, oh, of course, I get it. You want to just have a change.
So basically taking your transferable skills and building that bridge to the position you're looking for.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I call it a career narrative. I like career story.
Yeah.
I think I love that because it really is. I think that's it's one of my favorite parts of coaching is coming up with that. I think that's because I'm a big reader, so I love story. That's when I talk to people, I want to hear their story. I'm like, I don't care about, I care about the weather, but I want to hear what's going on with you. Like, how did you get here? That seems really nosy, but I am interested.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you, or whether from your past or working with clients now, what do you see as the biggest barrier or obstacle people face when they go into interviews?
So I would say the career story is genuinely where I start with clients. When someone comes to me saying, I'm having a challenge with interviewing, whatever it may be, I always check in to say, how are you answering the question? Tell me about yourself. And I say that this is that answer. This is what you should be saying. And so one of the things I notice is people just aren't prepared to talk about themselves in a clear, concise way. What I mean by that is, when you get into an interview or when you're in a place where someone's giving you that space to actually speak, that is prime time. Like, you have a few minutes to really get across what makes you a good, strong candidate. And people just aren't necessarily equipped to be able to say that and to really convey that value. I always say it's about conveying the value, right? You can tell them what you did, and a lot of folks hope that the interviewer makes the connection, right? They'll say, oh, I've done this. And then, oh yeah, the interviewer will get it. They'll see how it's connected. And I'm like, no. You have to do the thought work for them, right? Because an interviewer also, they're not necessarily going to ask. If they can't make that connection, they may not ask you. They may say, hey, I have 10 people I'm going to talk to after you. One of them will probably connect the dots, so I'm not really too worried about it. So the onus really is on you when you get into that interview of how you're describing things and how you're conveying that value. And that's something people really struggle with. In addition to that, confidence. I think confidence, we could probably all agree that we've struggled with at some point in an interview. And what I think a lot of folks don't realize is the confidence comes when you know what you're saying. When you are confident, think about it. If you have a hobby that you're really passionate about, I'm sure you could talk for hours and tell everybody everything, and you're completely confident and comfortable. But when you're uncomfortable with some sort of information, it becomes that much harder to actually say it. And so helping people really understand and get comfortable with what that story is.
So people, when they should really start thinking about their career story or narrative. I'm gonna go with career story. That's great. I love it. So how would someone start really thinking about that? Like, how do they start crafting that in their head?
Absolutely. So I always like to start with the resume, just because that grounds us in, we're talking about ourselves professionally. Like, when someone asks, tell me about yourself, it's not, necessarily who's your favorite sports team. So I always start with the resume to say, let's get an understanding of your experience and let's get that story down of how you've made those progressions, like what happened at each of these moves. If it makes sense that you just kind of linearly were moving up, that's great. But what I would love for you to talk about is, here's what I learned in this role and the skills I gained that then helped me to move up to this next level. So starting kind of using that resume as the guideline. And then from that, I do say, hey, just talk to me, Steph. Don't do it in a formal way, but just talk to me and tell me what you've done. Like, tell me the actual story. And from there, I'm able to help my clients put together, okay, these are the pieces you want to be highlighting. These are the things that are going to make this make sense. And the most important thing is you always end it with walking yourself into that role. You always want to end with this idea of, and that's why I'm here. And that's why I think I fit for this role that I'm interviewing for. And so helping my clients go from, hey, what's on your resume? What have you done? To I can walk you all the way through why I am the best candidate for this role.
I love that. I hadn't even thought about that. Like the closing.
Yeah, you got to close it. You got to close it.
As usual, my older twin, he decided to make an appearance. He just woke up from his nap. So if anyone
Oh.
here is fine, he's not being tortured. He just woke up from his.
I have to specify.
Yes, he's okay.
Yeah.
He's very, he likes to make appearances, sometimes actually visually, usually just verbally. Okay. So people should really start thinking about their stories, and if they work with a coach like you or a coach like me, or if they're just doing, really start thinking about, everyone already has, that's what I always tell people, everyone has a story already.
Right.
It's about how can you tell it.
Exactly.
So what were your big do's and don'ts that you tell people?
The big do's and don'ts. So, I mean, I will say when I work with clients, I do very kind of specialized work. So it all varies on who you are. But I think there are some do's and don'ts that are kind of standard. So when you're going into an interview, what I find with a lot of my clients is the way they approach it is thinking about, oh, what does the interviewer want to know? What do they want to hear? And what I always like to remind them, and again, this is coming from someone who interviewed at Pepsi and Uber, you don't know. You really don't know. I can promise you don't know. They'll have a job description, but you don't know what specific skill they need on that team. You don't know what that gap is that they're really trying to fill on the back end of hiring. And so when people try to fit themselves in a box, as opposed to kind of coming with their authentic selves, you could be missing the mark completely. And you're also not giving like the full view of who you are and the value you bring. So I always tell people, don't worry about what the interviewer is thinking. Don't worry about what you think they're trying to get at. Go into this just saying, this is who I am. And again, this is why I'm the best for this role. That's really the mindset I try to help them get into. Also, some other do's, I always tell people, it's psychological, but also physiological, right? Like when you get nervous, the anxiety, the things that come up, take a walk, drink a glass of water, make sure you're getting rest. All of those things are incredibly important to just help you when you're in that process. In terms of don'ts, you definitely don't want to walk in kind of with this air of cockiness. I think there's definitely a line between cocky and confident that you really have to find. And so walking in with the level of confidence, but not in a cocky, I have this role already, I'm, the shoe-in for it, is not the right way to approach it. I also say not asking questions is never an option. When you ask questions in an interview, it's less even about the question you're asking, but it's about showing that you're engaged. I've been here, I've been listening, I'm interested. I've genuinely done the research to be able to come with questions and show how engaged that I am. And so that is a really big part of an interview. So you always want to make sure you're doing things like that. Along those lines, an example of something that's a little depends is thank you notes. So this is something that comes up a lot. Back in the day, it would be, oh, I'm going to mail a thank you note to someone. And nowadays it would be email. But to be honest with you, the way that companies are hiring nowadays, it can be unfortunately a little less personal. And therefore you may not have that direct connection with the interviewer to say that. So if it is an option, I do say, I think you should do it. I always tell people take notes during the interview so you can actually reference part of that conversation and then send that thank you of, it can be incredibly brief. I appreciate your time. It was great talking about X, and insert something from your notes. And then, it was great to talk to you about this. I hope you have a great day, whatever it is. But those are just some examples of some do's and don'ts.
So I have a thank you note faux pas that happened to work out. I had an interview. This was back for my LexisNexis job years ago, and I wrote my little pretty L stationery, very pretty. I wrote it out, and I happened to interview with two Karens. They, not like their name were actually Karen. And I reversed the email, not the emails, the the cards. So they got the email, the card meant for the other Karen.
Oh, no.
And so, but I still got the job. And
There
then
you
when I
go.
talked to the person who became my boss, and I was like, "Did you know this?" She's like, "No, I didn't even know this. I just they gave me the mail." I'm like, "Oh, it was my mail," and it said, "Dear Karen." So don't make that mistake. Pay attention
Right.
to what Steph
Yes,
says.
definitely be writing down. This is the person I talked to.
Yes, this is the blonde person. This is the entrepreneur.
Right,
But it's
right.
so true about bringing the authentic self, because I know for myself that whenever I try to be like very serious and uptight, it doesn't work because that's not who I am.
Right.
And I always tell people it's so important to be who you are, because that you don't want them to hire somebody else. They're like they think they're hiring you, and then they get somebody who's totally different. And they're like, who is this? This is not who I
Right.
interviewed with. This person.
Or what people underestimate is the interviewer can pick up on a lot of that, right? I've been in interviews
Mhm.
where I'm just like, I don't think this is really your authentic personality. Or, there's so much of a wall of professionalism that I don't feel like I can even see you as a person. So
Yeah.
absolutely.
Like they want to enjoy working with you. They want to like, is this someone who I want to work with?
Yeah, absolutely. Trust me, that was a part of our assessment as well.
Yes. So going back to your saying about both asking questions and not putting yourself in the box. So one of the questions you can ask, like, is there a particular skill set that you're looking for the position? Is that one of the things that you can or should ask?
Absolutely. So the way you phrased it, that's definitely one. Are there specific skills that you're looking for? Another question I really like to ask is, could you give me 2 or 3 examples of characteristics that someone would need to be in this role, or, someone would need to be successful in this role? Getting those insights. And these are questions a lot of people don't think to ask, but they're actually incredibly helpful questions if you were to get the role. Right. Another question you can ask of, hey, if I were to get this role, what would be the expectations within the first 90 days? Now, a lot of people may not be prepared to answer that, but it's incredibly important because now hey, if I get hired into this, this is what I can expect. This is the ramp up that they'll have. Another question, how do you define success for this role? Now we're talking about, once I get in this role, what does my manager expect of me? What is going to get me that bonus? What is going to put me on track for promotion? These are the expectations that they have. So those are all really great questions that can give insight that a lot of the things people ask just don't really touch on.
Mhm. What do you think about can't think of, I'm just gonna call it the opposite questions. For instance, like just said, what are some characteristics or skill set for successful candidates? What about the opposite? If you ask, what are some characteristics of someone who wouldn't do well in this position, other
Mhm.
than not being a team player? See,
Right.
everyone says team player. Someone who's not a team player.
Right. I mean, that's a fantastic question. I've actually never asked that, but I do like that. That's
Yeah.
a really good one. And ideally you have a level of self-awareness enough to be like, oh, okay, then maybe I'm not the right person, or, whatever it may be. But I think that's a great question.
Yeah, I ask that question and it always catches them off guard.
Yeah, I would imagine.
They're prepared for what, like kind of some of the questions you say, and they're like, oh,
Right. What do
they
I
kind of,
not want?
yeah. I mean, everyone knows what they don't want, and then like they know the answer, then I'm like, should I say this or should I not?
Right.
But either way, you get them thinking, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is something different. This is someone who's like on it.
Right.
Another question I had for you is, what about filler words? Because I know like it's not said so much now, but it used to be said all the time that don't say or
Mhm.
like those kind of things. There was so much emphasis put on it. How do you address that?
For sure. So I do career and interview coaching, but I also do a lot of professional communication coaching. And so I
Mhm.
do use this online tool that has AI that gives amazing feedback to users. So I do integrate that into my coaching. I found that to be very helpful. It gives me metrics and KPIs that I can be tracking with clients. But correct, you do not want to be using filler words. I would say, and there you go. In normal conversation, very common. You say like, you say and that's totally fine. In an interview, you want to really minimize it. Now, if you do say a few, again, because we say it in normal conversation, it's not going to set off alarm bells. But what you find is people who are using them excessively to the point where it is distracting, it's because they're nervous. It's going back to that level of confidence, that level of, I know what I'm trying to say, therefore I don't have to use the fillers. I think a lot of people, when we get nervous, we tend to ramble and we speed up our speech. And when you're doing that, you're giving yourself those pauses because you're going so fast, so quickly in your mind. So when you're using filler words, to me, I always say, okay, pause. Let's actually slow ourselves down and then see how we do. I always recommend videotape yourself. Again, using this online program, I'm able to do that with clients. But if you don't have that, literally just put your phone up, answer a basic question, but listen to yourself, listen back. And then the next time you do it, purposefully say it in a way that feels uncomfortably slow. It'll feel really weird. You're not going to like it, but do it. And then compare those two videos. And I think what a lot of people find is that second one that feels really uncomfortable is actually what's more normal and common.
Mhm. I just lost my train of thought.
No, it's-
I was like, what? Oh, how do you recommend people build their energy confidence?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Building energy confidence. I mean, confidence in general, but specifically, like you got
Sure,
this
yeah.
interview, you've prepped for it, you've set up your cameras. I mean, I guess if they're working with you, you would help build their confidence. But so what can people do, like preparing for the day of, to kind of like hype themselves up?
Yeah, like a day of hype up. I don't know if anyone's familiar with power poses, but I do like that. So, right, when we're nervous or not feeling so confident, like our body language tends to go in. And so there is something, we know this, that physiologically your brain can mirror your body just as much as sometimes your body mirrors your brain. So if you're able to put yourself in an open, really confident stance, it can help your brain kind of be like, oh, okay, like, I guess we feel good. I guess we feel confident. So that is something that you can do. When it comes to like the nerves, if you're able to go for a walk, if you're able to just like maybe go for a run that morning, whatever it is, but getting that out of your body is really what's going to help you feel calmer and then more confident. If you're talking about just confidence in general, doing a lot of repetition. So as I've mentioned, when you don't know what you want to say or you're unsure, that's where you're going to lack a lot of confidence and have a difficult time answering things. But the way to actually know what you want to say is just repetition. And when I get in sessions with people, I'm like, you're going to hate me by the end of this, but I'm going to be asking you this question at least 10 times over the next hour, and we're just going to keep going. And so, yes, of course, that's maybe not the most fun, but again, I'm ending sessions with, oh, wow, I feel so much more comfortable. I totally see this now, and that's really what you want. But day of, just throw up a power pose or get out some of that loose energy and, go into it just trying to feel your best.
Yeah. Or I have a theme song.
There you go. I like that.
Yeah, I have there are two. One is Hate on Me by Jill Scott.
Nice.
It starts with horns, so you're like, yeah, like
Yep,
it revs you up. And just the name Hate on Me is like, you love me. It doesn't make me walk in cocky, but it makes me like feel like, yeah, I'm awesome. And the other one is Supermodel by RuPaul.
Yeah, I love that.
Usually I do it when I get ready. I'm like, it's old. I guess I'm old, but I don't care.
Hey, a banger is banger. Okay. There you go. That's
So
awesome.
if there's one big message you want to leave viewers, what would it be?
I think a lot of people are very intimidated by interviews, and they don't have to be something that you are intimidated by. They don't have to be something that you constantly dread. You can get to a place where you feel comfortable. And frankly, it's really about getting comfortable with yourself. So I would just want them to know, like, hey, you can overcome that fear, anxiety, whatever it is. But it's really about looking inward.
Okay. And I love that I was going to say, where can people contact you?
Yeah.
And you have it up already. That's
Yeah,
so
I
awesome.
can just call it out. So my website up top, consultgram.com. My email is steph@consultgram.com. My Instagram is gram_se. And then my TikTok is @consultgram.com, so yes, it does include the .com within the TikTok.
Oh, that's good to know. Are you on Facebook too? I feel like I see your videos on
Yeah, I
Facebook.
am on Facebook. And I believe that is S Graham LLC. So like Facebook,
I didn't know.
facebook.com/S Graham LLC. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I see it's you and I don't look at those.
Yeah, fortunately, you can post to Instagram and it'll just put it on your Facebook as well. So keep
Yes,
it convenient.
yes. Caution to people, be careful what you're putting on Instagram. If you don't want it to show up on Facebook accidentally
Right,
or on purpose from their point
right.
of view. So thank you so much for joining me
Absolutely.
today. It's been great. It's always great talking to you.
Yeah.
And if you are looking for a great career transition coach, you have two here.
There you go.
Uh,
Yeah.
you can contact Steph at any of those on her left. I guess it'd be on her right, but for us looking at her, it's on the left.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes. I think you have the LinkedIn. Yeah, you have the LinkedIn there. Is that the second one?
Oh, I do not actually have my LinkedIn. So
Okay.
my LinkedIn would be linkedin.com/in/SE Graham 7.
Okay. SE Graham 7.
Yeah. Yes, I
So,
apologize. Yes, Graham, GRAHAM.
okay. Yep. See, you have it right there. So if you have questions, be sure to follow her, make a
Yes.
connection because she's awesome and she always gives amazing and more importantly, helpful advice. There's many people who give advice is like, okay,
Right.
but her
Yeah.
advice is always on point. It tells you what you need to know. You can use it. That's one of the things. That's one of the reasons why I really want to talk to her because so often people give you um, I was gonna say raggedy advice. Since I'm not saying names, I can say raggedy advice, but that's very generic. And I
Yes.
love that you give helpful and useful advice that people can actually use.
Yes. Thank
So
you.
I mean, just think about what she did during live stream. Imagine if you're working with her, how exceptional help you're going to get,
Yes,
personalized.
very
And
personalized. Yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
geared towards you. You're going to walk in there like a supermodel who's saying, hate on me.
There you go. I love it. I love it.
All right. Thank you so much. And again, because you're watching this on most likely on LinkedIn, it's SE Graham 7.
Yes, SE
That the
Graham
number
7.
7, right?
Number 7. Yep.
Yes.
Perfect.
So be sure, like I said, to follow her, to connect a connection. See,
Yes.
you see that on our left side, all the ways you can contact her. And we'll see you at Tyke Talk next week.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, take care. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.